Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. It is a tough time we live in now, isn't it? A tough time indeed. Panic buying at the shops. No toilet roll? But it's okay, 'cause I'm here. Yeah, even I don't feel relieved at that one.
Good or Bad, Resident Evil.
Yeah, that was my attempt at the menu voice.
Resident Evil.
Yes, that's right. The 2002 movie based on the PlayStation classic Resident Evil. And I'm not really gonna compare them. I'm just looking at this as its own thing. Now, don't you two specific people out there worry. I haven't forgotten you. You see, recently I received a request to review Dogma. And that's not Dogma, that's The Fog. I also received a request to review The Fog. That one's Dogma. And I'm gonna do them. I just want to do Resident Evil first, because there's a new game out. So blame Capcom. Actually didn't plan on getting them mixed up like that. I don't know how I did it. What one's a freaking Blu-ray case and the other's, well, a blue case. So I've actually never seen either of them, so that should be a laugh. But back on track. The movie. This film was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, and like I said, it was based on a video game, which naturally means I should hate it, right? Let's find out. So what's it got in it? It's got Mila Jovovich, soldiers, zombies, zombie dogs, and that's quite bad, that. As CGI goes, that's not good at all. Well, I won't bitch about it too much, because I'm not really an expert on how much good CGI cost back then. All I know is that it doesn't hold up very well now. So let's take a look at the story. It's all about a pharmaceutical corporation, and if that hasn't wet your whistle, I don't know what will. And they are called the Umbrella Corporation. Who are the bad guys? I mean, it's a corporation, so that's kind of implied. Right, so this evil Broly Corp, it has a giant research lab hidden underneath Raccoon City, which isn't a city populated by raccoons. God, even by my standards, that is a terrible joke.
You suck!
And I'm sure you're wondering what's done in this lab. Well, the answer to that is tests and shite. One of them was to make something called the T-virus. As for why, you know the drill. It's always either made with the best of intentions or military applications. Either way, doesn't really matter, because some twat breaks it and unleashes it upon the workforce, creating zombies. Also, they have an AI called the Red Queen, who goes a bit homicidal and kills everyone and seals the lab. And thus the Broly gang, yes, that's it. That's what I'm going to call them now. They send in soldiers to shut it down and secure the situation. And with said soldiers, we have Alice, who works for the Broly gang, but was gassed when she was caught up in the unfortunate series of events at the start of the film. Not that we actually see her during the intro to the movie, but we do get to see the facility shutting down, and that was a nice start to the film. Now, we meet Alice when she wakes up in the mansion, which is actually the secret entrance to the lab. It is a tad unfortunate that we don't get to see more of the mansion though. Spend like 4 seconds there. I know I said I wasn't going to compare it to the game, but the Spencer Mansion had so much character, and for the movie to merely brush it aside and essentially just have it cameo in the movie, it's a shame. But what can you do? Aside from bitch on the internet, I suppose. Who'd do that? But anyway, the gas that she got caught up in gave her temporary memory loss. So naturally she recovers them as the movie goes on. And it turns out that she was a whistleblower, and that she was working with someone on the outside to give the old shady Broly a great big kick up the backside. Which brings us to this guy, who is called Matt, and he pretends to be a cop. But really, he is the brother of the woman that Alice was working with to bring down the Broly. but he doesn't actually know that Alice was his sister's contact. It's all fun and games until your face gets gnawed off by a dodgy zombie. Speaking of zombies, the rest of the soldiers are just zombie chow, or laser chow. Although it's not really feeding lasers, it's more getting cut to death by them. That is satisfyingly amusing. This probably is my favourite death scene of the film. Now, as for the soldiers themselves, one of them is played by Michelle Rodriguez. The character's name is Rain, and she easily has more personality than any of the others. Which, to be fair, isn't really a huge accomplishment, given that most of them have about as much of a personality as my bowl of Weetabix had this morning. It is interesting that I found her engaging, considering I knew she was a goner pretty much from the start. She got bit by the very first zombie. Loser. And usually that stops me getting invested in a character, but didn't have a problem here. To be fair though, the reason for that could very well be the fact that all through the film they never stopped banging on about a vaccine. So I suppose she wasn't necessarily doomed. But spoilers, she bites it. We will miss you, and your badass comments. Such as the bit where Alice was going to stop you from turning, but you were all like, bitch, I ain't dead yet, love. Then 2 seconds later she's trying to take chunks out of someone's neck. Could have been avoided, all I'm saying. Alrighty then, where was I? Zombie chow and lasers. Oh, and that AI I mentioned. She gets a bit sassy with them, and they turn her off. That's pretty much all that happens with the Red Queen, to be honest. At least we get to hear it say, you were all going to die down here, which I find mildly amusing for some reason.
You're all going to die down here.
Then there be treachery. Because there's this other guy, right, who worked with Alice to protect the secret entrance to the lab. That was their role in this shady-ass corporation. But, you see, he wanted to steal the virus and the vaccine, so he deliberately caused the outbreak in the lab. Before he managed to escape, though, he loses his memories just like Alice because he gets caught up in the gas. So naturally, when Alice starts to regain her memories, so does he. And he carries on with his plan to steal the virus. But he gets munched on by a licker instead. Yeah, the bad CGI licker, who is actually the final boss of the movie. And once you get past the CGI, the fight scene is okay. Nothing to write home about, but not bad either. And they actually kill it with a train. I'm not really sure why I'm pointing that out, to be honest. Upon victory and escaping to the surface, Alice notices Matt has been infected by the licker. But sadly, she doesn't manage to cure him. Because when she tries to, men with hazmat suits burst in and take her and the cure away. Setting us up for the sequel by teasing the Nemesis project. I cannot wait to finish up here and try the new game and die to the Nemesis 75 times. And the film ends with Alice waking up in a hospital and wandering out into Raccoon City. So, was Resident Evil good or bad? Personally, I don't really care for this one all that much. The story is very cliched. Shady corporation makes virus, virus gets out, and there are zombies. Which isn't inherently a problem. But if you are going to have a bland story, you need really good action scenes, cool enemies, and interesting characters to back it up. And like I said earlier, the characters are quite boring. Rain was the only exception, she was cool, but everyone else, including Alice, was pretty bland. The acting was fine though, there were no problems there, so that's a plus. As for the enemies, some of the zombies looked cool, but other movies like Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland, or hell, even TV shows like The Walking Dead, have done them but 1,000 times better. So despite the fact that some of the zombies, not all of them, only some of them look cool, there are better alternatives out there. Even ones that predate this movie, like Night of the Living Dead. So you can't even say, yeah, but Zombieland came out after this, so it had better technology. Well, balls to that is what I say. That's no excuse. Amazing makeup effects have been happening for decades upon decades. I don't know why I just invented an argument and then argued against it. It's very pointless. I also thought there wasn't enough blood and guts in the movie. And yeah, I realise that when I say things like that I sound a bit like a blood-hungry psychopath, but I promise you, I'm actually quite nice. Now don't get me wrong, there was gore present, I just didn't think there was enough of it. And I think that it is most apparent when the zombies first show up, because they are getting shot left, right and centre, and there's practically no blood at all. I feel a bit cheated. Also, and this is quite cool, I read that the presidents of Capcom Japan and America cameoed as zombies in this film, and I can't deny that's a nice touch. And for those of you that don't know, it's Capcom that owns the Resident Evil franchise. But moving on from zombies, the liquor. Well, unfortunately it looked like that, but more importantly, it never really did anything all that cool. So, the action. Did it at least get that right? Like I mentioned before, the laser grid scene was really good, and there was that bit where Alice jump kicked a zombie dog. You know, that actually took 3 months for Mila Jovovich to train for. And it looked badass, so well done there. But aside from that, it is pretty much just shooting zombies with limited gore effects, so that's not all that great. In fact, because of certain scenes in this film, such as the dog kicking and the laser grid, there are elements of an over-the-top action movie here, which I am all for. But sadly, this film just lacks the amount of over-the-top action scenes an over-the-top action movie needs to be an over-the-top action movie. So unfortunately, it's an under-the-top action movie, which doesn't sound as cool, does it? So to sum up, this movie had a bland plot, but it's okay, because its action, enemies and characters utterly failed to back up that bland plot, leaving us with an underachieving movie. And I say that because there is potential here. Potential that, if I remember right, the sequels did tap into. Because I remember liking most of the sequels a lot more than this one. So there you have it. Resident Evil. Not a good movie. It is in fact a bad movie. But at times, it can be enjoyable. You have been watching Good or Bad, and I will see you next time.